The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of First National Bank as Marcus Wells hurried across the polished marble floor. His worn sneakers squeaked with each step, drawing disapproving glances from well-dressed customers waiting in line. The boy clutched a small passbook tightly against his chest, his thin jacket barely protecting him from the air conditioning that hummed overhead. Marcus was 12 years old, though his serious expression often made him seem older. He had walked nearly 2 miles to reach this bank, the same route he took every Saturday morning. His grandmother had given him that passbook 3 years ago, just before she passed. Since then, he had been faithful about one thing, saving every dollar he could earn. At the main counter stood Brian Patterson, the branch manager. He was a heavy-set man in his late 40s, wearing an expensive suit and a permanent expression of self-importance. Brian prided himself on knowing who mattered in this town. He recognized the luxury cars in the parking lot and remembered the names of clients with substantial accounts. To him, banking was about numbers, and people were simply the vessels that carried them. When Marcus approached the counter, Brian barely looked up from his computer screen. "Can I help you?" he said flatly, his tone suggesting he had better things to do. "Yes, sir," Marcus replied softly. "I would like to check my account balance, please." Brian finally looked at the boy. His eyes traveled from Marcus's faded jacket down to the sneakers that had seen too many miles. The soles were separating from the canvas, held together with careful stitches that someone had sewn by hand. A smirk began to form on Brian's face. "Your account," he repeated, making no effort to hide his amusement. "Son, do you actually have an account here?" "Yes, sir. Account number 4-7-2-1-9-6. Brian's smirk widened. He glanced at the teller beside him, Sharon Martinez, a kind woman in her early 60s who had worked at the bank for nearly 30 years. Sharon's expression remained neutral, but her eyes held a warning that Brian chose to ignore. "Let me guess," Brian said, his voice dripping with condescension. "You have maybe $20 in there? 30 if you've been really saving up your allowance?" Marcus said nothing. He simply placed the passbook on the counter and waited. Brian made a show of sighing deeply before typing the account number into his system. He was already forming the words he would use to send this boy on his way, perhaps suggest he try the credit union down the street where they handled small accounts. His finger hovered over the enter key. "You know," Brian continued, "this bank typically serves clients with more substantial means. Perhaps your parents should open an account for you at." The number appeared on his screen. Brian's words died in his throat. He blinked, certain he had misread. He checked the account number again, then looked back at the balance displayed in bold numbers. $247,000. His face went pale, then flushed red. The smirk vanished completely. Sharon leaned over to see the screen, and her eyebrows rose slightly. She looked at Marcus with new curiosity and growing respect. "Is something wrong?" Marcus asked quietly. No. I just..." Brian stammered, his earlier confidence crumbling like dry sand. He cleared his throat, trying to recover. "Mr. Wells. My apologies. I didn't realize. Let me print out your statement immediately." Marcus nodded. "Thank you." As the printer whirred to life, an elderly gentleman approached the counter. This was Robert Chen, the bank's regional director, who happened to be visiting the branch that morning. He had witnessed the entire exchange from across the lobby. "Brian," Robert said calmly, "perhaps I might assist this young man while you attend to other matters." It was not a suggestion. Brian stammered something incomprehensible and quickly retreated to his office, his face still burning with shame. Robert extended his hand to Marcus. "I'm Robert Chen. Please accept my apology for how you were treated. That should never happen in any bank, to any customer." Marcus shook his hand. "It's okay, sir. It happens sometimes." "That doesn't make it right," Robert replied. He gestured toward a private office. "Would you join me? I'd like to hear your story, if you're willing to share it." They sat in comfortable chairs, and Robert waited patiently. Marcus took a breath. "My grandmother raised me. She worked as a seamstress for 50 years, saved every penny she could. When I was 9, she got sick. Real sick. Before she died, she made me promise 2 things, finish school and never forget where I came from. He looked down at his worn shoes. She left me everything she had. Said I should save it for college, use it to build something good. I keep adding to it whenever I can. I mow lawns, help at the corner store, whatever I can do after school. Every dollar goes in this account. Robert listened, his expression thoughtful. And the shoes? He asked gently. Marcus smiled for the first time. These were hers. Well, she made them. Taught herself how because store-bought ones were too expensive. She always said things last longer when they're made with care. I keep wearing them to remember that. To remember her. Robert was quiet for a long moment. Your grandmother was a wise woman, he said finally. And she would be very proud of you. Over the next hour, Robert helped Marcus understand investment options and set up a scholarship fund structure that would serve him well. But more than that, they talked about life, about values, about the difference between price and worth. When Marcus finally left the bank, Sharon stopped him at the door. Young man, she said warmly, I want you to know something. I've worked here longer than most people have been alive, and I've seen every kind of customer there is. Rich ones, poor ones, kind ones, cruel ones. You know what I've learned? Marcus waited. The size of someone's account never tells you the size of their character. You keep being exactly who you are. Marcus smiled. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. As he walked back into the sunshine, Marcus didn't notice that Brian Patterson was watching from his office window. The manager sat at his desk, the weight of his own behavior pressing down on him like a stone. He thought about his own son, about the values he had been teaching through his example. The realization was uncomfortable and necessary. That evening, Robert Chin sent a message to every branch in the region. It outlined new training requirements on dignity, respect, and the true meaning of service. Brian Patterson would be the first to complete it. As for Marcus, he continued his Saturday routine. Every week, he walked those same 2 miles, added what he could to his account, and honored the promise he made to the grandmother who loved him enough to give him both means and meaning. The worn shoes carried him forward, step by careful step, toward a future built on the foundation she had laid. Sometimes the most valuable things we inherit cannot be measured in dollars. And sometimes the wisest people are those who understand that worth and wealth are not the same thing at all. Thank you for listening to this story. If it touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories about kindness and human connection. Leave a comment below telling us about someone who taught you what truly matters in life. Your stories inspire us all.